Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. That morning, Richard Kingsley, the billionaire head of Kingsley Technologies, left the prestigious Artificial Intelligence Summit feeling deeply frustrated. All morning, he had been the target of incisive, even aggressive, questions about the ethics of his algorithms, accused of manipulating data for maximum profit, with no regard for human consequences. This public attack had left a mark on his mood. In his impeccable Brioni suit and dark glasses, he strode through the streets of Chicago, tapping away on his state-of-the-art phone, absorbed in preparing his next speech, already focused on the next meeting. He paid no attention to the neighborhood. The modest houses, the faded facades, the distracted passers-by didn't interest him. His mind was elsewhere, focused on numbers, contracts, strategies. He was a man of power, accustomed to imposing his will, to ignoring details that didn't seem important to him. Suddenly, a sharp, harsh noise made him jump. His electric SUV, a marvel of cutting-edge technology, braked abruptly, as if frozen. He felt the weight of the silence, the vehicle at a standstill, the tires jammed against the hot asphalt. Seriously? He growled in exasperation, putting down his phone. He walked around the car and immediately noticed the right rear tire, completely deflated, almost flattened against the ground. A luxury that no longer ran, immobilized in a neighborhood where it would never have wanted to be seen like this. He tried to reach his driver, a man who was usually punctual and efficient. No answer. Then he tried calling Kingsley's assistance service, a premium worldwide network. Nothing. The phone reception seemed non-existent here, in this corner of the South Side, far from the skyscrapers and the glitz. A helpless sigh escaped his lips. He was alone. Dressed in his success clothes, he found himself vulnerable, forced to face reality. He looked around, a little uneasy. The streets were quiet, but the landscape seemed foreign, unfamiliar. No luxury, no security. As he bent down to examine the wheel, a voice spoke behind him, firm but gentle. "I saw your tire is flat. I can help you if you want." He turned around quickly, a little defensively, and saw a black woman in her 30s, wearing gray overalls, her hands stained with grease, holding a torque wrench in one deft hand. She stood in front of a small, unassuming garage with a rusty metal sign, Jackson Garage. His gaze was calm, assured, marked by the confidence of someone who has mastered his craft. "Are you a mechanic?" he asked, with a slightly condescending accent, as if he doubted she could take care of a car as sophisticated as his. She looked at him, her composure intact. "Naomi Jackson. I run this garage here. And yes, I'm the one doing the repairs. Not a robot." He raised an eyebrow, hesitant, not wanting some stranger to touch his technological jewel. "This car is worth more than this entire block." She shrugged impassively, as if the monetary value didn't matter to her. "It's worthless if it doesn't run. So, should I do it, or do you wait for a tow truck that won't come for another 2 hours?" Silence fell. Richard, taken aback by this quiet assurance, fell silent. Without another word, Naomi knelt down beside the vehicle and began to remove the wheel with perfect skill, her movements precise and rapid. The noise of tools, the scraping of tires, the familiar clicking of the trade seemed almost a soothing melody to him in this tense context. He watched her, wondering how a woman in this neighborhood could have such expertise. Naomi worked with a fluidity that contrasted with the surrounding nervousness. Her movements were sure, almost choreographed, testifying to an expertise honed over years in this small garage, its walls covered with plans, tools, and familiar memorabilia. In less than 10 minutes, she had removed the flat tire with efficient speed, replaced it with a perfectly fitted spare, and then set about checking the vehicle's sophisticated electronic sensors, manipulating the devices with the precision of a high-level technician. All this, without a superfluous word. Her silence seemed to weigh heavily, like a declaration of competence and dignity that required no approval. Richard, initially distant, found himself looking at her with a certain admiration mixed with astonishment. He had underestimated this woman. Then, her gaze was drawn to an unexpected detail, a touch of understated elegance on her hands, worn by manual labor. A black ring. Not gleaming gold or glittering diamonds, but a piece of smooth, finely polished ebony, engraved with a delicate silver inscription. An almost imperceptible mathematical formula ran across the band, like a secret whispered over time. Puzzled, Richard frowned and dared to ask. "This ring. Where did you get it?" Naomi slowly looked up at him, measuring his astonishment, almost defying the unexpected curiosity. "Why this question?" she asked, her voice calm, almost suspicious. He took a deep breath, as if he were about to reveal a buried secret. "It's the ring that Alan Jackson wore. Alan Jackson, a brilliant engineer who worked with me 20 years ago. He saved my company from total collapse back then. I only saw it once, but it left a lasting impression on me. It's unique, unmistakable." The name echoed through the air like a familiar one. Naomi stood slowly, her eyes shining with suppressed emotion. "Alan Jackson was my father." An almost sacred silence fell. Richard remained speechless, stunned by this unexpected revelation. "Wait, you're his daughter?" She nodded, with pride and a certain melancholy. "Yes. He taught me everything. Not just about engines or circuits, but about life. He always refused to join your company, your world of numbers and glitter. He said you only knew how to listen to what glittered. I chose to stay here, in this neighborhood, to take over his garage, to continue his legacy." Richard looked at her intensely, the distance between them seeming to disappear as he realized the true value of what he saw before him. She wasn't just a mechanic. She was a keeper of rare knowledge, a woman who carried with her the memory of an exceptional man. Richard's tone changed immediately. The harshness in his voice softened, replaced by a sincerity that betrayed deep admiration mixed with a hint of regret. He placed his wrench on the hood of the SUV, as if to concentrate, then spoke with a mixture of respect and nostalgia. "Your father was a brilliant man. Brighter than many I've met in this business. He helped me avoid major lawsuits by improving the security features of my algorithms. It's thanks to him that Kingsley Technologies survived at that time. I tried to recruit him several times, with offers that were hard to refuse. But he always refused. Always." Naomi looked at him calmly, unvarnished, with the same quiet confidence that characterized his entire presence. She didn't need to defend her father, or justify her choices. She knew who he was, and what he stood for. He believed deeply in independence, she replied calmly, in the transmission of knowledge, not the accumulation of power. He didn't want to be swallowed up by these big machines, these multinationals where humans become mere numbers. He wanted to train people, fix what was broken, teach what he knew. He always said, "If you make someone able to fly alone, you've done your duty." Richard nodded, his throat tight, as if he finally understood the significance of this message, beyond business and profits. "And you chose to follow in his footsteps." Naomi gave a small smile, tinged with pride and determination. "Exactly. I'm not in ivory towers where we exchange ideas disconnected from reality. I'm here, in this neighborhood, with these young people from the neighborhood. I see them come every day, learning to understand a machine, to solve a problem. And that, Richard, that's worth much more than an end-of-year bonus or an annual bonus. That's true wealth." A silence fell, heavy, laden with unspoken words. A silence that weighed on me, but which also opened up a new, more sincere space. Then, in a lower, almost hesitant voice, Richard asked sincerely, with an emotion he had not yet dared to show. "Is there anything I can do to honor his memory?" Naomi stared at him intensely, searching his eyes for that authenticity. "Then do something that doesn't have your name on it. Do it for those who don't have a ring, but who deserve one. Do it for those who are forgotten, for those to whom we never reach out." He felt the force of her words, the power of a call that went beyond simple business. 3 months had passed since that unexpected encounter on Jefferson Avenue. Spring had slowly repainted the streets of Chicago a soft green, and in a small suburb still marked by urban bustle, a new building had just opened its doors, the Alan and Naomi Jackson Center for Community Innovation. This place wasn't a futuristic-looking temple of glass and steel, as one might have imagined for a center partly funded by a tech magnate. No. It was a warm, humble space, anchored in the neighborhood, where every brick seemed to breathe the history and hopes of the residents. No flashy spotlights or flashy banners. No pompous speeches, empty promises, or big names plastered on the walls. Just an open building, doors wide open, inviting those society had often forgotten to come learn, create, and dream. Richard Kingsley made a discreet appearance at the inauguration. This gesture, far from being publicity, was sincere. He had agreed to fund the center for 10 years, with one strict condition: no Kingsley Technologies logo would appear on the walls. This institution was not to become a trophy, but a shrine. Naomi, true to form, stood there in her usual attire, her gray overalls, lightly stained with oil, a sign of her daily work. She stepped forward before an audience composed of attentive high school students, young black girls passionate about science, and curious children with bright eyes. A respectful silence fell. Everyone knew they were about to hear something real. Naomi spoke in a clear voice, filled with emotion and conviction. My father didn't believe in recognition. He believed in transmission. She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. This ring, which I have worn for years, is no longer just a memory. It has become a promise. With a solemn gesture, she removed the ebony ring from her finger. Everyone's eyes followed this simple yet historically charged object. Naomi walked to a glass case in the center of the room and placed the ring inside, next to a black and white photo of Alan Jackson, smiling, arms crossed, a proud expression on his face. Whoever contributes the most to this center will have the honor of wearing this ring for a year, she declared, her voice vibrant with hope. A murmur of excitement rippled through the audience. The ring was becoming a living symbol, a challenge to every young person present, to work, learn, share, and above all, to pass on their knowledge. Richard, in a discreet corner, watched the scene with an emotion he no longer tried to hide. He felt that a bridge had just been built between two worlds, between the dreams of an independent engineer and the power of a technological empire. This bridge was Naomi. The Alan and Naomi Jackson Center would not only be a place of technological innovation, but a beacon of hope for an entire community. Years later, word spread throughout the region, carried by word of mouth and the knowing smiles of locals. On Jefferson Avenue, in this once-forgotten neighborhood, a small garage had come back to life. But this was no ordinary garage. No, it was a place where engines found their breath again, certainly, but above all, a sanctuary where lives resumed their path, where buried dreams slowly awakened. Locals spoke of Naomi Jackson as a guardian. A woman with a calm, deep gaze, whose work-worn hands seemed capable of repairing more than machines. She mended hearts, revived hopes, and sowed newfound confidence. Young people from the neighborhood came there looking for much more than a mechanic's lesson. They came to listen to his advice, to learn patience, perseverance, and respect. The garage had become a discreet beacon in the night, a space where promises for the future took shape in the sound of tools and the clatter of shared ideas. And then, unbeknownst to many, some claimed to have seen Richard Kingsley himself, sometimes returning in person. Always under a false name, always without pomp or fanfare, he would come and sit in a corner of the garage, a simple cap on his head, watching silently. He came to ask for a service on his old convertible, an almost futile pretext. But above all, he came to listen to Naomi speak to young people, to see them grow and rise. He came to remember, far from the spotlight and the boardrooms, what true greatness was. A humble, discreet greatness, one that doesn't seek recognition on walls or in titles, but one that repairs, that elevates, and that leaves lasting traces in hearts. He had learned that true power lay not in money or fame, but in the ability to transform the lives of others, to leave a living legacy. And that sometimes the greatest victories are won quietly, in the shadows, on a street corner where it seems nothing is happening.